Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There's nothing to report out of closed session, and so at this particular point in time, I'll ask that anyone that wishes to address the board may do so by filling out a application in the back, and if there's something that isn't on the agenda, we'll address that separately. If there's something that's on the agenda that you want to refer to, you're welcome to speak up at that time. For right now, we're going to have the approval of the minutes for March 9th, and we have some corrections to that before we approve it.
You're right there. You can just say the amended minutes. They're right there.
You've all seen the corrections that were going to be made?
Yeah.
Okay. We received ahead of time the corrections, so they're... So we'll entertain a motion to accept the March 9th meetings as corrected.
So moved.
Moved by
Trustee Martin.
Trustee Martin.
I'll
Seconded by Trustee, I'm having a hard time with it. Flores.
Flores.
All in favor, signify by...
Well, just, do we need to read out the corrections?
Oh, that's correct. There were some
I mean,
corrections.
I'm not sure what proper protocol is, but it seems...
One of them is that I abstained from one of the employee personnel items, and the other one is to renew a management contract on one employee. Sounds good?
My understanding that as long as the board has read them, the board is the one that's approving.
Fine. That's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for March 23rd. Are we ready to accept those as presented? We have a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Riley.
Second.
Second by Trustee Don. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And at this time, as I mentioned earlier, this is a time for public comment if anybody wishes to do that. Seeing no one to jump up, we'll go ahead and close that portion. Now, what we're going to do with approval of the board is there are two items that we want to move up to the beginning because people come from out of town, and we want to have a discussion and an opportunity from there to get away from here early. So the first one will be 4.7, which I have it right here, is a presentation regarding our ASKIP, our risk management person, to make a presentation. Teresa, you want to introduce him?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chair Rojas. I'd like to introduce Russ O'Donnell. He is the Chief Operating Officer for ASKIP, which is the administrator for our Valley Insurance Program pool, and he also administers our pool. And he has a presentation and also a gift for our district to present tonight. And I want to thank you very much for coming all this way to meet with us. And for those of you that may not know, Abe Rojas has served on the VIP board for many, many years, and I have too. So we've been working with Russ for a long time.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to come out here and make this presentation tonight. As Teresa said, I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Alliance of Schools for Cooperative Insurance Programs. We have been your insurance partner with VIP JPA since 2010, working on your general liability, your auto liability, your property, and your workers' compensation programs. ASKIP has approximately 140 members throughout the state, school districts that we support and provide services to, and that's a little over 1.2 million students. So as part of your insurance JPA, it's our responsibility to help you when bad things happen, whether that's defending lawsuits or paying claims. But we also think it's important to help you provide services that prevent bad things happening in the first place. We think to do so is not only the right thing to do, but we believe that with those types of services that you will lower your costs, lower your claims, and pay cheaper premiums, which provides you more money to do the things that you do best, which is education. We have created the Risk Management Pays Award to recognize those members who utilize our loss control services. We have a wide variety of services that help with risk management, that loss control, educational programs for your staff. And we want to recognize those districts who utilize those services. And we created the Risk Management Pays Award for that purpose. You're one of less than 10% of our member districts receive this award. And we have created the award to really recognize the efforts the district has made for the safety of their staff and students and the public at large, but also to recognize those individuals at this district who help us provide these services to you. And I'd like to mention Teresa Scott and Dorothy Pimental, who are instrumental in terms of creating this culture and reaching out to us to provide these services and helping us deliver them. So I have this very nice plaque that is framed to give to the district tonight. It says, for the dedication to creating a culture of safety for its students, staff, and community, and hereby designates the district as an award recipient for their risk management activities. And as the title says, Risk Management Pays, we also provide a check for $6,000 to the district. Again, thank you, and thank you for the support.
Thank you.
I think it would be nice to have a photo op here with the board.
Teresa and Abe at least.
And
Teresa and Abe.
Join
I think,
us,
do that one.
and then I'd also like to
Yeah.
have Dorothy.
'Cause we're gonna do
She's in charge of our risk management
and
here on
Dorothy.
Let's see
campus.
if she's here. Oh, yeah.
She's
okay.
here.
Get the board. Have all the board.
We'll just have Abe
No, you just you
and
represent
Teresa
us around.
and
This is your deal.
yes. Yeah, we'll go on the next one.
Oh, okay.
But it's nice to do it right in front of the dais. It's a good photo op. Russ, Teresa, Dorothy, just right here in front of the dais is always a nice spot.
They should have brought one of those big checks like they
Yeah,
use
this-
in England.
As long as we can cash it.
Yes. Which account are you putting it into?
Hold the check up.
Risk management.
Perfect. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay.
$6,000. Nice.
At least you didn't have to squat down, Don. We'll get all of us together. Okay.
Reality.
The 6
Yeah,
point,
the second portion.
yeah.
The second portion will be
Pretty negative, sorry.
a presentation for authorizing participation in what is called PARS, Pension Rate Stabilization Program. And we have had a previous meeting with our Vice Chancellor of Fiscal Services, Don Viss, and Trustee Riley and myself. And we thought this was too important of an issue for just the three of us to try to decide on, so made it a point that we would bring it to the full board in order to have everybody knowledgeable of what the presentation was about. So with that, Teresa, I'll turn it over to
Okay,
you.
thank you, Chair Rojas, once again. Tonight we have two of the folks we work with, both from the U.S. Bank Vice President Carolyn Cox from U.S. Bank, and then Vice President Maureen Toll from the PARS organization. And a little history on PARS, they put together well, many pools across the country, but one of the pools that we've participated in for quite some time is our retiree liability fund, where we're funding for all the benefits when we all retire, so the money will be there. What they're going to present tonight, and we also have a resolution for the board to consider, is another program, and it's for a pension rate stabilization. And we've talked over the last several months, if not the last couple of years, about the pending increased employer costs for STRS and PERS. And so what these two organizations, U.S. Bank, PARS, along with the League, the California Community College League, they put together another program whereby community college districts, K-12 districts, governmental and other governmental entities can put aside funds in an irrevocable trust, similar to our retiree liability trust, for those future rate increases. And so Carolyn, again from U.S. Bank, and Maureen from PARS will go over what this program is all about to explain the resolution we're asking you to approve tonight, so if you so desire.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. We're going to speak to you briefly, and then, feel free to ask any questions that you have, of course, about the Pension Rate Stabilization Program. It's a long name, so PRSP is what I'll call it. And as Teresa indicated, this program was developed recently by PARS and U.S. Bank. PARS, the trust administrator, U.S. Bank serves as the investment manager and the trustee in conjunction with the Community College League. So they're involved in this. And the reason that this program was developed was, as you're aware, CalSTRS, the employer rates are going to increase, or they have been increasing. As of 2021 fiscal year, the rates will increase to 20.4%, and CalPERS rates will increase in that same time period. CalPERS rates will increase to 19.2%, and CalPERS rates will go to 20.4%. So for the STRS rates, that's more than doubling the current rate. So this will result for the district in an increase in pension retirement system costs of $6 million during that time period. And the Chancellor's Office, the State Chancellor's Office, has indicated that they believe in this last couple months that districts should set aside funds for this long-term liability, not just for pension rate increases, but also for OPEB. And so what we did is we came up with a program. It's a first-of-its-kind IRS-approved program that will allow for the first time for community college districts to set aside funds in a locally controlled trust account. And those funds could be accessed with flexibility of the district, access it for these pension rate increases. And so, as I mentioned, it's an irrevocable Section 115 trust. Think of it like the OPEB trust in that regard. It's funds that are set aside solely for pension costs. The trust, even though it's dedicated for pension costs, it's irrevocable. At any time, the district can take reimbursements for its annual costs, for its increases, however it wants to take the funds, and it can direct the trust to pay directly to STRS and PERS. So it's similar to that. And the idea behind it, and as Teresa mentioned, we have community colleges in it, school districts, cities, counties, special districts, all types of public agencies in California. The idea behind it is that, in essence, it's sort of a rainy day fund. Some are putting money aside, and then as they need it on a budgetary basis, they'll take the funds back. Some are, every year as the contribution rates increase, they'll take the difference out. And so there's flexibility in how it's used. One thing to note is, as of this year, GASB 68 is requiring that STRS and PERS liabilities be on financial statements. So any assets that are set aside into this trust are considered assets against that balance on your on your financial statements, just like with OPEB. In terms of investing the funds, that is under the control of the district. U.S. Bank has certain portfolios that they can put the funds in, from very conservative to, depending on the time horizon of when the funds are going to be accessed, to a more diversified approach. Most of the public agencies that are going into it are taking a more conservative approach than they would OPEB, because those funds may be accessed earlier than OPEB. It might be a shorter time horizon than retiree health care is. So you want to look at it a little differently than that, and you have that flexibility. One of the benefits of this is because the district has its OPEB funds with PARS and U.S. Bank, there's economies of scale. So the fees will be based on total assets, the OPEB assets, as well as these pension rate stabilization fund assets. So there's benefits, there's economies of scale with that. But what I want to emphasize, it's really locally controlled. You have autonomy over those assets, but they're set aside in a much more structured way than they would be if you just put them into another type of account, much like with OPEB. And so, so that's the idea behind it. And pre-funding this growing long-term cost shows financial stewardship, and that's why many public agencies are doing this, or starting to do this. So that's to give you kind of an overview. Is there anything you wanted to mention at all? You're fine. Okay. Okay. Do you have any questions? But that gives you kind of a quick overview of the program. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Go ahead, Tom.
I just had a couple. Is there a tax benefit in addition to just the benefits of being in the fund?
Yes, this is a good point. The reason that we went to the IRS and got approvals is because it is an employee benefit trust, and so it has to follow certain IRS requirements. And so the funds going into the trust obviously are not taxable. Earnings would not be taxable, much like a pension trust or the OPEB trust. And so there's protected tax status for that. And that benefits the retirees and the beneficiaries as well. So any time you have an employee benefit type of vehicle, it's got to be approved by the IRS for tax qualified purposes.
And then the other benefit for us versus us just setting aside the money ourselves is we expect our return on investment to be much higher. Okay.
Yeah, there's a higher, you can achieve a higher return on investments. You have more flexibility than you would in terms of state law with investment.
Trustee Viss?
We all watched STRS and PERS lose a lot of money in the last downturn because they made bad investments, because they didn't have any security. So what security are we offered if we do this?
Well, you certainly wouldn't be investing the funds in the same way as STRS and PERS. You can invest in a very conservative manner, so that is, so you control that. You don't control, obviously, what STRS and PERS do with the funds, pension funds.
So if we have autonomy over the funds, why do we need you?
Thank you. That's my question.
You're very much restricted when you don't put it into an irrevocable trust in terms of what you can do investment-wise. So we have a bit more flexibility in terms of generating, a rate of return, a longer-term rate of return that's higher.
Now, is this trust irrevocable under certain conditions or completely?
It's irrevocable for everything but STRS and PERS costs. So you can reimburse yourself for those costs. So when we say irrevocable, it doesn't mean you can't take funds out of it. It just means that it's only for that particular purpose, much like OPEB retiree health care.
Do you have some examples of interest rates that you have districts in this program? What did they do last year?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about too. Do you want me to talk about the target rate of return on the various?
Yeah, you can talk about that.
Okay, and then you can speak. In terms of the target rate of return, there is one portfolio that's a conservative portfolio, and the U.S. Bank is targeting a 5.3% rate of return over time. Obviously, if you do a primarily fixed income only portfolio, then it would be less than that. The portfolio that your OPEB funds are in right now is what's called a conservative income portfolio. That long-term target rate of return, what U.S. Bank is managing to invest for, is a target return of 6.75%. So based on when you need those funds, it would likely be, you'd set a target probably lower than that long-term. Yeah, sure.
So the way that we work as the discretionary trustee and investment manager at the bank is that we do have several investment options or pools that are available for the managing of the assets. And so depending upon, we typically meet with staff to decide with them what the cash flow projections are going to be for the funds and how they're going to be used. And then we work at recommending what would be the appropriate portfolio. If you were to say to us, we're going to pull all the money out in like a 2-year time period, we would probably keep it in something that was a cash deposit account that would not have any kind of principal risk at all. But as you go and add in other securities to that, so typically fixed income bonds or equities, the mix of those will change depending on how conservative you want the portfolio to be. So that's really what we do with staff, is to sit down and determine that cash flow projection and then what's the appropriate portfolio. There is no guaranteed return in any of these portfolios because they are subject to what's going on in the investment marketplaces. But in addition, as things that have a guaranteed rate of return, except for like a CD or something like that, like a annuity contract with an insurance company that might have a guaranteed rate of return, this does not have any cost to go into it, and there's no cost to liquidate out of it. So there's no what they call gates and fees for entrance or exit out of any of these portfolios.
So is this a contract for X years, or?
No. We can start it, and then you can pull out of the program at any time, and we can reimburse the funds for, depending on how much money you put in, but I'm sure the amount of money you put in is not going to even equal like 1 year's of your PERS or STIRS. So you can request for a total reimbursement for those contributions you have made for that year, and then that would get you out of the trust.
Yeah. We just need a 30-day notice to leave it, so there's flexibility there.
Trustee DeMartini?
Yeah, I have so many questions. You're talking, using a lot of vocabulary that you're very comfortable with, that doesn't really carry specific concrete information from me. Don Viss asked you, what rate of return are you paying? What did you pay this year to conservative?
This program, as Maureen mentioned, this is a very new program. We've just gotten the first participants. This has just come up over the course of the last year. The private letter ruling was obtained last July, correct? Mm-hmm. And so the first contributions have just gone in at the beginning of this year. So we don't have a track record on these particular pools of funds. What we have is we have a history with our OPEB program that is run very similarly to this program. And so I didn't bring with me the actual returns from the OPEB program. Do you have that?
Yeah, well, I have for some of the pools here.
Okay.
Yeah. As of 12/31.
Okay, so the conservative income over the course of the last 5 years has returned 3.92%. On an annual basis.
Okay, let me ask, I still have more questions, but we have a fair amount of our budget in reserves. Do we earn interest on those reserves?
Yes.
What's wrong with just putting this money into reserves where we don't have to go to an irrevocable trust? Is there a good reason to not do that?
Yes, because in the reserves, the public community college funds reside with the counties that govern, or that we are part of. And the counties invest all kinds of money through their investment pools. What this does with the IRS ruling is allows us to invest in I don't want to use the word, we're still conservatively investing, just like the OPEB, but we can generate an additional amount of money than we would if it sat in the county treasury. And really as Sarah and Mary and I evaluated this program, they've mentioned several times, it's like our other post-employment, except we can invest out longer. It's a safe place to put the funds. They're out of the general fund, and then we can use them just for those rate increases.
So you can't use it for the first 12% or the first 9%? You can only use it for the rate increases?
Oh, no, we can use it for whatever we need in PERS and STRS. I think that's what Maureen just said. But what we would like to, our plan will be to use it to offset those cost increases. And the reason that we are looking so seriously at this is the year, as we've reported to the board, that the state as a whole has received one-time funding in quite a large amount. And I've reported we had about $9 million. Now, we put some into scheduled maintenance, we put some into the OPEB. We want to take this money and set maybe $2.5 million aside, so when we have COLAs like we're having this year, 0.47%, and or we have no growth, no new money, that we're not encroaching any more on the general funds that are very, very limited right now, and we'll be able to transfer from this irrevocable trust for some time to help meet those increased costs. Now, I will say that what we put over there still is one time. So the other component of the district plan has to be identifying new ongoing money so that when we use this money over the next few years, that we will be replacing it with ongoing money. But this helps us shore up this pretty huge increased cost that all of us in the state are facing, and only found out about it maybe 18 months ago or so. So we're in a position now, if we left it in the county treasury, we certainly could do that. We would move it out of the general fund and put it into what we would call a self-insurance fund, and it wouldn't be irrevocable. And it could sit there and we could draw it from there. The beauty of this is, say we don't draw this money for 4, 5, 6 years, it's going to generate more income because the county treasury is not investing in the manner that we can here. I will also share that over the years we've been in the OPEB trust with PARS and U.S. Bank. We've held to a conservative method of investing, and still have achieved like 5 and 6% long term. Now we know we won't do that here unless rates really turn around, but we know we will have some increment more earning in that fund. And it's just a safe place to put some of that one-time money.
How do you get your money? What do you make on this?
We charge a fee, both PARS and U.S. Bank charges a fee that's a percentage of the assets.
Okay, that's the kind of answer I don't like. How much do you charge us?
So for our services on the U.S. Bank side, we're on a sliding scale or a tiered strategy. So it's 0.3, 0.3% for the first 20 million that goes into the program. And then it goes down to 0.2% for anything over 20 million.
And we're not likely to get there.
We aggregate the funds that are in the OPEB with this trust. And so you're already at a much lower tier with us, and PARS does a similar thing with their fees.
Yeah, I think when we did analysis based on some projections of what your existing assets in the OPEB trust plus some projections of funds that you would put in, and the total, all-in costs would be, 43 basis points, which is
0.43%.
Right.
Is what you charge us.
So that would be the combined fee for this additional money.
Right.
Excuse me for just a minute. Can you hear in the back? I know we've had someone that stated that they couldn't hear in the back, so we want to make sure everybody can hear. So if you can't, raise your hand, and then we'll try to get closer to the mic. But okay, but it seems like we're okay then. Thank you.
Right, that covers the legal costs, administrative costs, the investment management, the trustee fiduciary, aspect of this serving as a discretionary trustee. So it's a sort of an all-inclusive asset-based fee.
The other advantage, to answer your question, one other aspect is, U.S. Bank will assign a money manager, an expert in the field, who does public investing, not any private or any of that. And that is another, what I think is a huge positive, because I'll be the first to admit, I'm not an expert in investing. You know, that's why most of us go through 403Bs or mutual funds or whatever we do for our retirement investments, nor is Sarah or Mary. And so even if we could do this on our own, we wouldn't even bring this to you for that. What we would do is put it in the county treasury, and we'd earn, it's been less than 1% for several, you know, quarters. So it is really just so that we can make the most off of the limited funds that we have in a very conservative manner.
Okay, so if the board approves this, how much money are we putting in there? It's not on here.
Well, we were looking at no more than 4 million, and probably now between 2 or 2.5 million initially.
And who will make that decision?
Well, we will talk with the chancellor with the one-time money. That, like I mentioned, we had 9 million, have 9 million. We put some into scheduled maintenance projects because we haven't had scheduled maintenance money. We're putting 1 million into the OPEB account.
So, but that decision is made by you and the chancellor?
It would be. I mean,
that was my question.
Okay.
So it'd be you and the chancellor making the decision.
Well, and with the recommendation of our controller, our fiscal people.
And
we did talk it over with our.
And, you know, we talked about it with the ad hoc committee. And we had a big water main issue and other things like that, so we have to just see what the cost of that is. But it would be somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million, depending what some of those other costs would be.
Keeping in mind the increased costs will be nearly 6 to 10 with STRS and PERS, and so we still need to find additional money. Yeah. But we need to have new money coming into the system.
Well, I'm very much in favor of proceeding with this. I think some of the concerns that I hear are risk in terms of how the money is invested. And if you really look at how money that's invested in equities and a mixture of fixed instruments, decade after decade after decade, always outperform what you're putting in a non-risk bearing instrument. Even during the Depression, the stock market for a 10-year period outperformed the fixed instruments. So I don't have any concern about the risk because we've got a long time frame that we'll see some ups and downs, and over time we're going to make, I believe, significantly more money, which frees up more money for the operation of the college. The other concern I heard was flexibility. You know, once we put the money in there, what can we do? Well, this is such a small amount of money compared to what we will be paying out for STRS and PERS in the future that it gives us all the flexibility that we need, that our money's not going to be tied up. The cost at 0.3%, I think, is minimal and will be dwarfed by the money that we will be making on the investments. And in terms of the idea of increasing the reserve from what it is now and keeping it there, I like the fact that it shows everybody that we are concerned with being able to meet our obligations for STRS and PERS in the future. And not only being able to meet that, but provide stability. If we don't, we're just kicking the can down the road like the federal government is doing with Social Security. Mm-hmm. And it's going to come home to roost at one time, and the actions that will have to be taken would be very severe. And I think by doing this, we're going to provide a lot more stability, more even keel. We're not going to be rushing out and hiring a lot of people and then a lot of facilities or services, and then all of a sudden saying, we don't have that money anymore to support it. So I want us to be sustainable. I don't want us to be jerked up and down like the state of California has by this boom-bust mentality, but looking forward and providing stability.
Any other comments?
I got one more.
Go ahead.
I think we've been pretty good, better than a lot of districts on this issue, and I see this as just another good proactive way to try and get ahead of it, or not behind it any more than people are. I just have one question though, and that is on the investments. I just thought, I want to make sure we're not one of these funds that shies away from investing in coal or candy. You know, I don't think they're illegal yet. So is that going to be the case?
So we're talking about kind of socially responsible investing, or?
Politically correct.
And so the way that we look at socially responsible investing is that the bank is a fiduciary of these funds. So that means that we have kind of we have some skin in the game. That's the way that our regulators look at us when we act as a fiduciary or a trustee. And so all the investment returns that you get when you start to filter out certain investment types, you have to perform to a standard that is what a reasonable person would do. And so if you factor in socially responsible investing, you're not performing up to that standard. And even when you look at the CalPERS and what they do as far as like socially responsible investing, they do some of it, but it's like 0.2% of the total portfolio that they can do in socially responsible investing. So the IRS and the Department of Labor has basically said that unless you can prove that by doing socially responsible investing, you're not hurting the participants, which are the beneficiaries of this trust, so the employees, then you can't do socially responsible investing. That's kind of a long answer to saying we don't eliminate different security types because of that reason, because we need to be held to that standard.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Call the question.
Call for the question.
I'll move we adopt the resolution authorizing participation in PAR's pension rate stabilization program.
Have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Been moved by trustee Hallinan, seconded by trustee Roddy, that we go ahead and enter into agreement with PARs. All in favor? Are there any other questions before we make the vote? Any other comments? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Do you want a hand vote, or do you want to go with the general vote?
Let's just go.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much for the presentation. And as I said earlier, you know, we wanted to bring it forward so that we can ask questions, because you know, I'm sitting there and I'm not an investor, but I was listening to what was going on, and the one thing that I do know is down the road we're going to have a heck of an obligation in order to pay these pension funds. So I feel confident in what we're about to enter into. So.
Well, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here and answer the questions. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go back on to the regular agenda, which will have the reports and information item. First, we're going to have the
irrigation presentation.
Oh, it's the bottom of the page.
Oh, that's you, right? Oh, irrigation.
Oh, okay, I thought that was the other one then. Okay, we have the 4.1 presentation of irrigation technology.
Don Gorgeous. Don, are you doing it?
Whoever was going to make that presentation.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. It's like the MDC report.
Somebody want to hit the lights over there, please? Thank you.
The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it's to act with yesterday's logic. We are in a time of turbulence. California is in the middle of a 5-year drought.